today's millinery class. So this will be our first recorded class, and this is what we're doing today. So let's get on with the materials we'll be needing for the class. So you're going to need your fabric for the outer part of your fascinator and then the inner part of your fascinator. And for this class, I'm going to be using this material for the outer part of the fascinator, and then I'm going to use this as a lining for the inner part of the fascinator. Okay, you'd also need some crinoline of about 1¼ inch wide. Okay, for this project is 1¼ inch, but you can use crinoline of any size depending on what you want. So I have a 3-inch one here, and I'm going to show you how to use that as well. Okay, you'd need some beads. It could be matching beads or it could be a contrasting color depending on the look you're going for. So you need some beads, you need some feathers, and then you need some ribbon, okay, as well. So let's get on with it. Basically, I have all my stuff here for decoration, some ribbon, some feathers as well, and then you need your glue. So I'll be using 3 different types of glue. I'll use them intermittently as and when I need to use the PVA glue, and I also have a glue gun on standby. You need your cutting edge. For this one, I'm using a scissors. You'd also need something to mount your fascinator on. I have a hairband and I have a hair clip. Now I've not decided yet which one I'm going for, but for this one I use the hair clip. Now the reason I've not decided is this hair clip is quite big, so I want to finish the project and see which one is suitable, but it looks like I'll probably go for the Alice band. You'd also need something for the backing, okay, to fit your hair clip. So for this, I'm going to be using felt to help me attach my clip at the end or at the back of the fascinator. So we have all our things in place. Let's get on. Now let me mention a few other things that I've not mentioned already. You're going to need a needle and a thread, and I will be using the fisherman's cord throughout my project in this class. So the size of thread I'm using as a fisherman's cord, that is the 0.25, is what I'll be using. And then basically you'd also need a needle. It could be any needle you're comfortable with for stitching, hand needle, okay, and then your ruler. So let's get on. To start with, you can get your stencil for keeps, and for this size of fascinator, the circle I made was 15 centimeters in diameter, and if you're looking at it at the radius length, that will be 7.5 in radius. Let me quickly show you how to draw a circle in the easiest way. So get a paper, fold it into 4, okay, or fold it into 4. So you do your first fold and then you do your second fold, and then you have them folded into 4 equal parts. The radius of my circle was 7.5. So I'm just going to take the measurement of my radius from the center to this bit here, measuring 7.5 centimeters, right? So from the corner to this bit is 7.5. I can take that all the way around, okay? From the corner to this bit is 7.5. From the corner coming up here is also 7.5. You can even see a circle taking its shape. So we just connect it with our hands. Or if you can't do that too well, you can put in a lot of 7.5 measurements. Okay. So there we go. We have our circle. I've gone ahead to transfer my circle on my cardboard. So I'm using cereal boxes for that, okay? And I cut 2 shapes out of it. Now this one will be for the outer part of the fascinator. So it's going to be for the top bit, okay? And then the smaller one is going to be for the inner bit of the fascinator, okay, for the inner bit. So you need 2 circles. First, you cut 2 circles out of your stencil. One should be bigger than the other. So after you've cut both of them out, you're going to scale the inner bit down by a quarter of an inch. Okay, so you take from out here coming in, you're going to make all the markings all the way around, draw a circle all around, and then you cut it off. So if you look at it, one of my circle is bigger than the other. When you've done that, you're going to draw a line. So from the center of your circle coming out, which is a radius, you just do a line like that from the center. So if you are not sure, you can always fold your stencil into two. Okay, place it on one side of it and try and figure out the center of your circle in that manner. All right, so when we have this, I'm going to cut this plate open just to this point. I'm going to do that for both of them. Right, now when I've done that, I'm going to overlap my circle like that. So I'm going to overlap it 2 centimeters or 0.75 inches. So I'm going to get some sellotape to stick this down in place. I'm going to try and line up. Because it's an overlap, sometimes the edge gets bigger on one side, so you just try and shape it in place, and then you have it in that way. I did it for the smaller circle, I'm doing it for the bigger circle. So for that too, I'm going to overlap it the same size as I overlapped the smaller circle, which is 2 centimeters. Okay, it cannot be bigger than that. So 2 centimeters overlap, and then I'm going to stick it down with my sellotape. Okay, so now that our shapes are properly done, okay, I'm going to set them aside and go ahead and prepare my fabric. So this is going to be for the outer part of my fascinator. As you can see, is a corded lace. Okay, so I'm going to take my paper stencil again, place it on, and then get my shape onto my fabric with my tailor's chalk, as you can see. But when I'm cutting, I'm going to be cutting about at about 1 inch away from my original shape. Okay, so 1 inch all the way around. I'm not cutting at the exact size of the stencil. I'm going to be cutting away. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need this to be perfect. I'm just going to have to cut around it all, and then I'll do the same for my lining or the inside of the fascinator as well. Okay, so I have my shapes cut out onto the fabric. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Okay, I'm going to start with the biggest circle because that is the one that is for the outer bit. Okay, so I'm going to be covering it like that with my fabric, and we are going to be using the PVA glue. Okay, I'm going to get some on my box or card box, and I'm going to spread it out thinly, okay, onto it like that. I'm going to just spread it out with my fingers. If you're not comfortable with it, you can use a brush, and then I'm going to spread my fabric onto it. Okay, now this is what we have. At this point, if you think that you need to shape your fabric down a little bit, you can always do that. I'm going to do it like that. Okay, now when this is done, I'm going to be putting snips into the fabric. Okay, so you just snip it to get closer to the box, but not cutting through it. So as you can see, okay, I'm going to do that all the way around, snipping about 1 inch apart, okay, all the way around. The next thing is to get some glue onto it here. And then push the fabric down like that. So I'm going to try and do that for all of it. Okay, all the way around and push the fabric down. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. I'm just going to put a few craft pegs in place just to keep a few places that seems to be standing up down, and then we'll leave it to dry. But basically that is it for covering the top bit, and I like the way it's looking at the minute. So I'm going to set it on the side for it to dry up, and then we do it for the inner part. So it's the reverse of the outer. So for the inner part, we are going to be sticking it from the inside instead of the outside like we did for the outer part. Okay, fine. Let me mention that you can use the uhu glue for this as well. You can use it for spreading your fabric out onto the cardboard. Okay, so we have both of them like that. Now that we have them all finished off beautifully, you're going to put the two of them together in that manner. So the next thing is to put some glue all around and inside, and then pick the smaller one and then place it in the bigger circle. So I'm going to just spread enough glue. Now this has to be enough, not thinly done. It has to be enough, especially around the edges here. Remember that you don't have to come all the way to the tip here because the edge doesn't come there. Okay, so I'm just going to go in a little bit at this end, and I think that should be enough. And then just spread enough in here whilst we stick it there. So I'm not going to spread this thinly, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Just pick this up and then place it in the middle and try and hold the ends together. So here we are. Now I'm going to put a few craft pegs in place all around it like that. You know, the north, south, east and west positions, and then from there on I'll place them in between. So basically I'm just doing it just like the way you would block a hat, you know, put about a couple of them in between those positions and then leave it to dry out. If you don't have the craft pegs, you can always use your usual clothes pegs to just hold them in place. And then leave it to dry out for a while. If you think you need to still put a few in between, go ahead and just do that, because we want it to be perfectly done and holding each other properly. So at this point I'm going to leave it to dry out for a bit. Okay, whilst we're waiting for the base of our fascinator to dry up, let's prepare a crinoline. Okay, it's about 1 inch crinoline. Now you're going to be cutting that into 3 different sizes. So the biggest size, that will be 8.75 inches, and you're cutting 2 of that. So you're going to be cutting 2 of that length. Okay, 2 of that. I'll set it aside. Then you go ahead to cut the next size, and that is 7 inches, okay, long. So you're going to cut 2 7 inches long. You set that aside, and then the last length you're cutting, that is 6 inches long. Okay, now we are going to try and make this kind of flower at the top. Let's prepare it now as we wait for our base to dry up. So I'm going to get my needle. Let me set it on the side and get my needle and thread in my fisherman's cord. Let's get on with doing our flower. So I'm going to start working with the smallest length, okay, which is a 6 inches in length. So I'll pick the ends and overlap it about a centimeter, okay. Then I'll get my needle and go in like that, okay, and then I'll pull it. Now I'm stitching on a double thread, and I've made a knot at the end. So I'm going to go through my knot and then pull it to lock it in place like this. Then I'm going to press it to the center, making sure that I'm pressing it in the center like that, okay. Then this time around, with my needle and my thread, go through the whole bit in the center. So I'm going to go through the whole bit in the center. I'm going to do that a couple of times. Oh dear, wrapping around it. do that again a couple of times. That's, I think it should be enough. Now the next thing is pick up my thread and then wrap around this into a bow. So try and let it look like it's a bow. Okay, it's a bow of equal size on both sides. Wrap it a few lengths more, and at this point try and make a knot at the back. So do that and go through it a few times. Okay, now because this is nylon thread, you can do the knot one more time before we finally cut our thread and bend the ends. I'm just going to cut my ends and leave a little bit of working length, if you can see, okay, for the thread. And then I'm going to get my lighter to bend it down, and that actually locks the ends in place and it does not unravel, as you can see. So I'm going to set this aside and repeat this step for all the lengths I've done. Okay, so once these are done, you can see I've just put them into sizes. So I'm going to take one of this, the bigger one, and then put it in a cross like that and put a stitch in place to hold it down. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. So I've done that. Okay, I still have my needle and thread attached to it. I've not taken it out. I'm going to put this on a cross this way to fill this bit and this bit. Okay, so I'm going to cross it in that manner so that it is laying in that, you get it, to fill the gap between these two. Is going to lay in across like that. So I'm going to bring my needle from beneath to pick on that as well, and then run a stitch to hold it in place. Okay, make sure that it's all holding in place. Then I get the other one and then cross it too in that manner over here. Now the last one is just to place it here. Okay, and that will be it. So I'm going to stitch this in place as well. Okay, so now that the bigger flower is done, we're going to cut 2 strips of this small ribbon, 4 inches each, 2 of them. And just like we did for the bigger flower, you bring it to the center here, hold it like this, and then let it overlap. And just like we did for the other one, make a stitch like that in here. And then press it to the center and then stitch it in place like a bow. So the same thing we are doing here. I'm going to repeat that for the second one and then leave it like that. Okay, so for this, I'm not going to tie the rope around it. I'm just going to leave it as flat as it is so that we'll be able to stitch it to the center, because once you wrap the thread around it, it becomes too tiny and then you don't have enough space to stitch it to the center. So I'm just going to leave it the way it ended at this point and cut it off, and that is it. And I repeat the same for the second strip as well. So with my thread in, I'm not going to cut my thread, so I'm going to stitch it in place and then attach it to the center of the bigger flower like that. Okay, so the flower is done. I've stitched in 5 pearl beads on top. You can do 3, you can do 4, but I chose to do 5. For this I did 3, so it's up to you what you want to do, really. Then you cut strips of ribbons. So this is what I'm working with as my ribbon. I think it's about 1 centimeter width of a ribbon, and the length for the longest one I did 3.75, and for the shortest one, the 2 short ones, I did 3.5. Okay, and I got my feathers and I shaped the end of it, and I put a little bit of glue and pushed it into the hole of a pearl bead. So I did that for these two as in preparation for the decoration. I'm also going to be putting a few of these in places when I have done it, and I think I'd like to place them. For now, for finishing off, I'm going to be using the glue gun So I have it in now connected. I think it's hot now. I'm going to just squirt a little bit over here like that. Okay, and then I'll be sticking my ribbons in place. So I'm going to stick the shorter one first, and the longest one comes next. Okay, then the third short one comes on the side like this. Okay, so the next thing is to put my feathers in place like this, and then put some glue on top of all of that to keep it in place. And then once I have that, try and put the flower on top of it as well. So I'm holding everything down with my glue gun. Put some pressure on it for a while before I let it go. I think I like what I'm seeing. So it's a display of shades of blues. Okay, I think I like what I am seeing. So that is it. That is what we have here. Now what is left to do is to try and put a clip here, but in the meantime I'm just going to let it dry up for a bit whilst I prepare, you know, the backing for the clip. So on second thought, I've decided to use the hair clip, and I'm going to be putting the hair clip at the bit where we have all of the decorations, so the opposite bit of it, like that for me. Okay, it's quite long, but it looks like it's the best option at this point. So I'm going to just put a little bit of glue at the back of my hair clip and then come and stick it in place. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is. It looks like it's firm, else I would have just opened it up like that and then place a felt across it in the middle. Probably do that because it looks like that will make it firmer and hold it in place. So I'm going to try and put felt across it like that to keep it in place. I'm going to get some glue onto the felt and then come and stick it in place in the middle. So when you finish to clean it up, you can just get a little bit of sellotape and then pick up all the mess you don't want with the sellotape. Beautiful. So this is what we have, and I think this is beautiful. Okay, so we've come to the end of today's project. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you've not done that already. Until we meet again in our next millinery class, have a